There's a shrine nearby that had been deserted for decades. I'd heard stories and rumors about the place, but I never really listened or paid any heed. People say the shrine is haunted and nobody goes near it anymore. The story goes that a rogue priest did some forbidden ritual there and summoned a deity or a demon. Who knows? And ever since, strange things have happened there. So people stopped going to it and just let it sit there and rot. A few years back, some kids went up to the shrine and they were never heard from again. Well, when it comes to missing people, you never really know what happened. They could have been kidnapped for all I know. I don't really believe in ghosts, demons, or even gods for that matter. Rumors about the place have been circulating again recently though, and it piqued my interest. On a boring weekend, I decided to head up there myself. See what all the fuss was about. A little test of courage. I had nothing better to do, and if nothing happened, I figured it would be a nice little walk. Boy, was I wrong. I arrived at the shrine a little before sunset. I gazed up the stone steps. It looked like a long way up, but I wasn't going to back out now. I braced myself and started climbing. As I got about halfway up, I passed two small Inari statues. I stopped for a moment and listened. Silence. Absolute silence. No wind, no insect ambience, no birds, no cars driving by. Completely still. It was eerie. The Inari statues looked old and withered, watching over the steps. I could have sworn one of them looked at me for a brief second. I shook it off and continued to climb the steps. It felt like it took forever to reach the top, like the stairway kept extending farther and farther. A small breeze whisked past me, and I swore I heard a whisper for a second, my name being called. I spun on my heels and looked around, but there was nothing. All was silent again. I continued up the stairs and finally made it to the top. At the final step was a torii gate, followed by many more. It appeared to be a long path of torii gates leading to the shrine. Jeez. Talk about a long walk. No wonder nobody wants to come here anymore. As I had this very thought, a chill ran down my spine. It felt like someone had just touched my shoulder. I spun around, but once again found nothing. I sighed, starting to think this might not be such a great idea, but I was going to tough it out. I started walking down the torii gate path. Ahead, I could see the trail curve to the right, then around some trees to the left. The sun had set by now, so it was dark. I pulled out my keychain flashlight and let it illuminate my path. Barely, but it was good enough. As I walked, I noticed something strange. Every time I passed through a torii gate, I felt a tingle, like a static shock. It was mild at first, but as I continued down the path, it started to get more intense. As I passed what must have been the 10th gate, I swear I heard a faint spark sound as the shock bolted through me. This was getting a little crazy. I wasn't sure if I could make it much farther if I kept getting shocked like that. As I continued, I suddenly froze in place. Up ahead, where my light shined, about 2 gates down the path, I saw a shadowy figure standing there. I couldn't make out if it was a person or what, but it scared the shit out of me. I stood still, my flashlight aimed at it. It didn't move or make a sound, just stood there watching me. As I was about to open my mouth and call out, it disappeared without a trace. I continued on the path, still getting small shocks with each gate. I felt a chill as I passed the one where the shadow had been. But none of that was going to stop me from getting to that damn shrine and seeing what it was all about. Though I'll admit, I was a little rattled at this point. I got smart and tried walking off the path around the torii gates, but quickly regretted the idea as I heard noises coming from the surrounding woods. Growling, whispers, creepy shit. I stepped back onto the path and passed through a few more gates, getting shocked again before I finally got fed up. "What the hell is going on?" I yelled. "How long was this path?" It felt like there were 100 gates to go through just to reach the shrine. It seemed redundant. Before passing through the next torii gate, I stopped and waited. A soft breeze blew through, rustling the leaves on the trees, but otherwise it was quiet. I decided to try something else. I turned around and started walking backward, still facing the next gate as I stepped back through the previous one. And would you know it? I made it to the shrine. After walking backward through the gate, I ended up in front of the shrine courtyard. I looked back and realized I was standing at the first torii gate at the top of the steps. Weird. So the whole thing had been an illusion? I shook it off and stepped forward toward the shrine. The sliding doors were in the center, and there was an offering box on the right with a bell hanging above it. To the left stood a lone, large Inari fox statue. Its eyes glowed faintly, and it seemed to be watching me. I gulped as I stepped closer and approached the offering box. Might as well give an offering and a prayer, I figured. I took out my wallet, grabbed a 500 yen coin, and tossed it into the box. I put my hands together, bowed, and offered a silent prayer, though I had no idea what to pray about. So I just said, "Thanks." While I prayed for that brief moment, I heard another whisper. It was clear as day this time. It said my name. I took a few steps back, and suddenly the bell above the offering box rang by itself, 3 times. My heart pounded as I looked around, wondering what could have made the bell go off. But there was nothing there. You had to manually pull the rope to make it ring. I hadn't touched it. After that, I stepped back and took a good look around the shrine courtyard. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. In fact, the shrine looked clean and in great shape. Then I noticed something near the side of the shrine, close to the statue, a shadowy silhouette. It stood motionless, watching me alongside the Inari statue's glowing eyes. A chill ran down my spine. "Hey!" I yelled. Suddenly, the figure darted back behind the shrine. "What the hell?" I followed after it. I ran around the side of the shrine and stopped when I reached the back. There was what looked like an old garden there, but it looked wrong, decayed, disgusting. Even the trees were withered and dying. A foul odor hit my nostrils and made me gag. Something was definitely wrong with this area. I saw movement in the corner of my eye and quickly turned toward it. The shadow figure darted between the trees and disappeared deeper into the woods. It felt like a really bad idea, but I followed it anyway. I chased after the shadow for a while before losing sight of it, then slowed to a walk. The shrine was still barely visible behind me, but the woods were dark as hell, and my little flashlight didn't help much. That's when I stumbled upon a well. It was made of stone, as you'd expect, but it looked ancient. The stone was crumbling and wretched. An eerie buzzing sound emanated from inside, and just looking at it filled me with a horrid feeling. I figured whatever the shadow was, it probably had something to do with this well. But I was done. I turned and started walking back toward the shrine. I took maybe 10 steps before I heard a sudden ploop sound behind me, like something being dropped into water. I spun around, and there was the shadow figure standing behind the well. Then it vanished. I walked back over to the well and thought, stupidly, maybe it was some kind of wishing well. I pulled out a 100 yen coin and tossed it down. A few seconds later, I heard the same ploop sound. I regretted it immediately. Not only was I wasting money, but I just sealed my own fate. Mist started pouring out of the well, thick and unnatural. Soon after, something followed it out. A hideous beast unlike anything I'd ever seen emerge from the darkness. I backed away slowly at first as it climbed free. It had a woman's head with long black hair matted over its face. Its limbs were long and contorted, bent backward at the joints. It crawled out of the well like a spider. The moment it made eye contact with me, I bolted toward the shrine. I ran as fast as I could while the thing scrambled after me, its twisted limbs snapping against the ground. I dashed around the shrine at lightning speed, and with no better options, I slid open the front doors and threw myself inside. I held the doors shut as the creature clawed and scraped at them from the other side. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, everything went silent. It went away. For now. I leaned against the door, panting and wheezing, trying to catch my breath. What the hell was that? I thought to myself. Maybe something really was going on here after all. Once I was sure the coast was clear, I started looking around the shrine. The first room was nothing more than clutter and junk. Broken items, old boxes, and debris were scattered everywhere. I opened a narrow side door and found a small room filled with what appeared to be rancid, rotting remains of old offerings. The smell made me gag. At the back of the shrine stood another large sliding door. I took a deep breath and braced myself for what might be beyond it, then slid the door open. The room beyond was in mint condition. Everything looked polished and new. Several candles burned softly, casting warm light across ornate decorations and neatly arranged furniture. An altar stood to the right, and I wasn't alone. At the back of the room, lying on a bench, was a woman. She wore a beautiful flowing kimono. Her long silver hair draped over her shoulders, and her figure was undeniably alluring. Most striking of all, she had ears and a tail, large fluffy fox ears and a thick foxtail. I swallowed hard and took a step closer. Hello? I said. She smiled and slowly stood up.
Hello, boy.
She said softly.
You're a cutie.
She walked toward me, her hips swaying gently from side to side. Her eyes never left mine.
Now just what are you doing here in my shrine?
I had so many questions, but no time or courage to ask them. I stood frozen, shaking, watching her approach. She circled me slowly, dragging a finger lightly around me like a predator, sizing up its prey.
I could just eat you up. Tell me, boy, what's your name?
I couldn't speak. Fear, desire, something else entirely. Something wasn't right. Why was this beautiful fox woman here? Was she a goddess? And why would she be here amid all the chaos? The shadows, the creature from the well, all of it, unless it was her doing. She stepped in front of me and slipped off her kimono, letting it fall to the floor. She stood there completely naked, her body beautiful and intoxicating, yet everything about it felt wrong.
That's quite all right. I'll find out your name soon enough.
Her voice smooth and confident.
I'll grant you my boon. Tonight, you will have sweet, sweet dreams.
I gulped, nodded, and stumbled out of the room, my mind spinning. Once outside, my legs nearly gave out. Being near her felt suffocating, like an immense pressure pressing down on me. I took a moment to catch my breath, then made my way home. When I got there, I took a shower and went straight to bed. And she wasn't lying. I had incredible dreams. Dreams of her, making love to her. The next morning, I awoke feeling refreshed. Too refreshed. I pushed aside thoughts of the previous night and all the scary shit, chalking it up to stress, and got ready for work. Everything seemed to be going well that day. Really well. I had an unusual streak of good luck. Things fell into place effortlessly. I figured it was her boon at work. Work went great, better than great. I even got a promotion, but somewhere in the back of my mind, something felt off. Every so often, I would catch movement from the corner of my eye. A flicker, a shadow. When I turned to look, nothing was there. Everything felt too peaceful, too perfect. Turns out it was too good to be true. I should have known better. One day at work, something strange happened. It started like any other day at the office. I sat at my desk, typing away at the computer, going through document after document. Eventually, I got up and headed to the lounge to make a pot of coffee. Usually, a coworker or two would wander in, but that day it was strangely silent. When the coffee finished brewing, the lights flickered. Then I heard it. A sharp spark somewhere in the building. A sound that made my stomach drop. It reminded me of the shocks I felt passing beneath the Torii gates. I took my coffee and headed back toward the office floor. That's when I noticed something was wrong. Everyone was gone. Every desk was empty. Every chair abandoned. It was like the entire office had vanished into thin air. I stood there frozen for a moment, my grip tightening around the cup. Then, zap. All the lights went out. I stood there in the darkness, shaking in my shoes, nearly spilling my coffee. As I took a few cautious steps forward, I heard whispers. At first they were faint and distant, but then they grew louder, closer, coming from every direction. They flooded my head. I couldn't understand a single word, but the noise drove me to the brink. My ears rang, my thoughts fractured. "Stop it!" I screamed. "Just stop!" I squeezed my eyes shut, shouting into the void. Suddenly, everything went quiet. I opened my eyes to the familiar hum of office lights and the sound of co-workers chatting. I was standing in the middle of the room, coffee sloshing over the rim, everyone staring at me like I'd lost my mind. Had it all been in my head? Another day, on my way home from work, something else happened. Something that scared the shit out of me. I was sitting on the subway, minding my own business like always, killing time on my phone during the same 20-minute ride I took every day. There were only 2 other passengers in the car, a woman across from me, half asleep, and a businessman standing near the door, glued to his phone. The train entered a tunnel. Everything went dark. For a moment, I couldn't see a damn thing. Then the lights flickered back on. I glanced around. Something wasn't right. There was another passenger now. Someone who hadn't been there before. They sat across from me, a few seats away from the sleeping woman. They had no features, no face, just a shadow, a silhouette shaped like a person, and I felt it watching me. My mind snapped back to the shrine, the shadows, the whispers. Was this one of them? Had it followed me? I stared at it, feeling more angry than afraid. What did it want? Why was it here? It didn't move an inch. The train slowed as we reached my stop. The doors slid open. The businessman stepped off. The woman stirred but stayed seated. I stood to leave. The shadow moved, just a twitch. I took a step toward the door. It mirrored me perfectly, step for step, keeping the same distance. My heart pounded as I approached the exit, but when the shadow reached the doorway, it stopped, blocking my only way out. I had 2 choices, face it or miss my stop. I gathered what courage I had left and rushed forward. I passed straight through it. A familiar shock ripped through my body, followed by a freezing cold that washed over me in an instant. Then it was gone. That night when I finally got home, I knew the truth. It wasn't over. Something was wrong. I had to go back to the shrine. The next day I returned, up the stairs again, past the trees to the Torii Gate. This time there was no endless path, just one gate, straight to the courtyard, straight to the shrine. It felt clear, like the path had been opened for me, like she was expecting me. I entered the shrine and went straight to the back room. I slid the door open. She was there, just as beautiful as before. She lay waiting, cleavage exposed, grinning as I stepped inside.
Well, well, well.
She purred.
Welcome back, boy. I knew you would come.
I nodded, my hands trembling. Yeah, well, I didn't really have a choice, I said. Shadows are following me. Strange things keep happening. What the hell is going on? What did you do to me? You call this a boon? Anger boiled in my chest, tangled with fear. She just grinned. Then she laughed. At first it was soft, amused, but it quickly twisted into something wrong, maniacal. Her laughter deepened, gargled, as blood began pouring from her mouth. Her jaw stretched unnaturally wide. Razor-sharp teeth glistened as her skin peeled back, revealing bone and raw flesh beneath. Her head split open into a massive, gaping maw filled with jagged teeth. I nearly lost control of my body. The laughter stopped. Silence fell. Then I heard a whisper, the last thing I would ever hear.